Hello, everyone. I'm here to read you my book, Scientology Abuse at the Top. And I plan on doing this in chapters so we can have, it broken down a little bit. And then plus, I'm going to add in a lot of commentary as I go through the book and read you the chapters so I can catch you up on whatever the latest is or explain things in more detail. Because I wrote this book kind of like very time, place, form, and event, fact, without a lot of um, elaboration or emotion or anything like that in there because Scientology likes to sue its critics, and I wanted to make sure that I could prove everything that I had written. But anyway, I want to make sure that you know the additional details. So we're going to talk about that as we go through the book. So Scientology Abuse at the Top, the book I released on May 9th, 2010. And since that time, I've sold many, many copies. And a lot has transpired since the end of this book when my mom and I were forced to disconnect from each other. And we were still disconnected when I ended this book. So I'm working on a second book. Um, of everything that transpired since then because it's quite a story, including a lot of episodes with Scientology's private investigators. But anyway, so let's go ahead and get this thing started. I'm going to share my screen um, and start reading you the book. Scientology Abuse at the Top by Amy Scobee. Disclaimer. Under the banner of freedom of speech, one should be allowed to express their words, thoughts, and opinions without repercussion. However, when it comes to making statements that could shed an unflattering light on the reputation of the Church of Scientology, one might end up with a legal battle on their hands, as history has proven time and time again. Therefore, I feel compelled to include this disclaimer at the outset of my book. The words I've written are my views, my thoughts, my opinions, and should be considered as such. That said, I saw it. I felt it. I am still experiencing the consequences of it today. You are free to formulate your own thoughts, ideas, and conclusions, and you alone are responsible should you choose to do anything based on what you read here. Introduction. My name is Amy Scobee. I'm really nobody special, just someone with a story to tell. The story of my 25 years in the top ranks of the Church of Scientology. Now, note I say church a lot in this book. I realize I was pretty freshly out of something that I called a church my whole life. And so, of course, I know it's a cult. So realize that as we go through. I left the church in March of 2005, and after getting back on my feet and regaining consciousness in the outside world, I decided I had a moral duty to inform people of what it's like to live and work in a quote unquote church that has total control of every aspect of one's life and uses their status as a religion to control the lives of its staff members to the point of abuse. What's going on behind the scenes is nothing short of hair raising and in utter contrast to the objectives that Scientology promotes. What one doesn't see or refuses to look at is a dark world filled with family disconnection, injustices, and physical and mental abuse, all cleverly concealed behind rosy glitz and glamour by PR trained puppets. You know, they don't even have PR trained puppets anymore. They have nobody that does their PR besides David Miscavige from the sidelines pulling strings and writing things in no name messages that he puts out. They have the worst PR imaginable. There are numerous individual stories available on the internet for anyone to read. My objective here is to recount my own experience, and in doing so, hopefully help to put all of this behind me, while at the same time assisting readers to better understand what is promoted as the fastest growing religion on earth. It's not promoted by anybody besides Scientology, really. I've heard some news people say that Scientology says that, but yeah, it's a false claim. With the quote, only true technology to improve the mind and set man free. Wow. You know, That's been debunked and proven to be completely, totally false. They're so destructive. They think that they can improve the mind, and meantime, look at people who get stuck in those, type 3 watches. Type 3 is when you're supposedly insane, and then they confine you and, muzzle you and don't let anybody talk to you. Lisa McPherson is an example of that. Most Scientologists don't have a clue about the information contained in this book, as they've never been on staff or part of the upper management structure. Public Scientologists are forbidden from reading or listening to anything derogatory, with the threat of being barred from advanced levels if it were discovered that they were non-compliant. While being kept in the dark, they donate lots of money, attend courses, and receive counseling, all the while cheering on David Miscavige, their current leader, who, unbeknownst to them, is a very evil and abusive man, a fact that will become clear as you venture through the rest of this book. The top of the Church of Scientology is the Sea Organization, and the top of the Sea Org is International Management. 1. The Sea Organization, also called the Sea Org or ESO for short, was established in 1967 and once operated from a number of ships, thus Sea Organization. It was originally set up to help Scientology's founder, L. Ron Hubbard, in his research of earlier civilizations and to supervise church organizations around the world. Actually, I think it should say that it was originally set up for him to flee the authorities. For 2 decades, I worked as the Sea Org's international headquarters, known as the INT Base, situated on 500 acres of land near Hemet, California. 2 decades on that place. This is also where Golden Era Productions is located, the organization that produces the lectures, promotional videos, and technical training films for Scientology internationally. They now have a place in LA as well, but this place at Gold is what we called it, or INT for short, has state-of-the-art buildings and equipment and facilities to be able to do anything audio-visual wise for Scientology. And then they set up this thing down in LA because I guess they couldn't trust the criminal SPs that are posted at the international base. That's millions of dollars down the drain. Since the property was purchased in 1978, the location of this base and the presence of international management there was kept secret, even to Scientologists at lower echelons. Originally, they were trying to make this location secure enough for the Scientology founder, L. Ron Hubbard, to freely live and work, and then the tight security policies were kept enforced. It was a rare occasion for anyone outside of the security-cleared INT-based personnel to come onto this property. When they did, we went through an entire drill to make the place appear awesome, especially when major celebrities would visit, but more on that later. Got some stories about that. Okay, doggies. This book will take you through my first encounters with Scientology at age 14 in Bellevue, Washington, my joining the church and attaining progressively higher positions within the organization, my trips to the Rehabilitation Project Force, then finally to my experiences in breaking away from Scientology and endeavoring to restart a life at age 42 with absolutely nothing. The Rehabilitation Project Force, or RPF, is described by the church as a program offering a second chance to Sea Org members who have become unproductive or have strayed from the church's codes, involving intensive physical labor at church facilities and auditing and studying sessions to address the individual's personal problems. I have a much harsher definition after spending a total of 5.5 years on this program, a controlled slave labor camp to which is assigned to anyone arbitrarily deemed a liability for actions or thoughts considered to be in opposition to the group. Thanks to the most wonderful and loving family anyone could hope for, I had somewhere to go, and I was warmly welcomed home. This is despite how badly I'd neglected my family over the years. There was no animosity, just a big relief to have me back. Others who have recently left were not as fortunate, but thanks to the internet and those banding together on the outside, we're doing what we can to reach out and help them get restarted successfully too. Many people honestly feel that they've been helped by the church and believe Scientology has the answers to spiritual freedom as they've experienced considerable gains through their own participation. I too felt that there was a lot of good. I think in my book it says, I too feel that there is a lot of good, and I changed it for this reading because I can't even say that. Otherwise, I would not have persisted through a fraction of what I did. I wanted to help. I wanted spiritual freedom for myself and others. But the Scientology world being created, starting at the top of the organization, is nothing short of insane. That is a fact that became painfully evident once I finally stripped off the rose-colored glasses, ceased rationalizing the abuse and insanities I both witnessed and experienced, and finally freed myself from the grip Scientology had on me for most of my life. Chapter 1: Discovering Scientology. I was 14 years old. My parents had recently divorced, and my mother took custody of me and my older brother. The three of us moved out of the house where I grew up in Auburn, Washington, and relocated to Mercer Island. Mom started working as a draftsman at a company in Bellevue, Washington. My brother and I would go to school during the day and spend the evenings with Mom. We'd visit my father on the weekends. I was beginning to get used to this routine when suddenly my mother was no longer spending the evenings with us. She was now attending classes after work at the Bellevue Church of Scientology. One day I was home alone and the phone rang. It was a staff member from the church named Brett. I told him that my mom wasn't home, but he said that was okay, as he was actually calling to talk to me. He said that he had heard about me and that I sounded like a very nice person and that I should come into the church to do an introductory service myself. I remember becoming very curious about this. I asked myself, even though I'm just a kid, these guys are interested in me? I told my mother about the invitation and asked if I could go in with her to meet Brett, to which she agreed. Brett was a very handsome man, posted as the public registrar, responsible for signing new people up for service and collecting their money. He interviewed me and said that he could tell that I had a lot of potential and would go very far in life, but that I needed to learn several tools to be able to do so successfully. Wow, I wanted to find out all about this. Brett called my mother into his office and had her pay for my first course so I could get started right then and there. I enrolled on the communications course on 17 May 1978. The public course supervisor, a nice lady named Sally, sat down with me to explain some basics. She explained that per the Scientology philosophy developed by the church founder L. Ron Hubbard, I was not my body. I had a body. I had a mind, but they were not me. My mind records both good and bad experiences throughout my existence in two different parts of the mind, analytical and reactive. She said that I was a spiritual being that's had several bodies in the past and will continue to exist when this current body dies, and that Scientology has the technology to clear away the reactive mind. And the reactive mind is defined, says per Scientology, a reactive mind is that part of the mind which works on a totally stimulus response basis, which is not under a person's volitional control, and which exerts force and the power of command over his awareness, purposes, thoughts, body, and action. My definition of reactive mind is that it's BS. uh, Sally showed me a chart of the training and counseling steps one takes in Scientology. She showed me that as I progressed up these levels, I would become free as a spirit and able to operate without a body at will, causatively moving into future lives. Doesn't that sound amazing? I thought, if this information is accurate, then maybe finding Scientology is a dream come true. It wasn't too long before I was sitting in the personnel office, signing a staff contract and telling my mom that I was quitting school to join Scientology full time on the crusade to clear the planet. Clear, what does that mean? A person who no longer has his own reactive mind is called a clear. Achieving the state of clear is a major milestone for Scientologists, and clearing the planet is a key goal of the church. At first, my mom said no, which I wouldn't accept. After all, I now knew I was a spirit in a young body, not a kid to be controlled by her mother. Finally, she agreed that I could go on staff full time, but I had to finish the ninth grade first, and until then, I could work there part time after school. So I sat through the rest of the school year, paying no attention to the teachers and doing no homework assignments. I just wanted to get back to my new adventures at the church. My first assignment was body router. My job was to go out on the streets of downtown Bellevue and persuade people to come into the church for a personality test. I was supposed to get involved in conversations with people and then find their ruin, whatever circumstances in their life that caused them to suffer in any way, such as an inability to communicate, trouble with relationships, etc. With ruin in hand, I was told to say, I know something that could possibly help you handle that. Come with me. I personally felt uneasy as a 14-year-old asking strangers much older than me about what's ruining their lives. Therefore, I pretty much skipped that part and just went directly to come with me. Surprisingly, a lot of people did. Once I turned these people over to the experienced public registrars, I was out the door again. After a few months of body routing, I was promoted to the position of Academy Course Administrator. My new boss was a 35-year-old married man named Daryl. He was very nice to me and explained the ropes as a new staff member. One night, Daryl said he needed me to work late to help him get some paperwork done. I told him I had to catch a bus at a certain time, otherwise I'd have no way of getting home. He said he would gladly drive me. Without going into detail, that evening when no one was left in the church, Daryl had me perform oral sex on him in the academy, and when driving me home, he pulled off to the side of the road and had sex with me in his car. I was only 14 at the time. Somehow, the Scientology ethics officer found out. I was certainly too afraid to tell anyone myself, so Daryl must have confessed. The ethics officer summoned me to her office. I was scared to death about what the consequences were going to be. I knew it was against the law, and Daryl could be arrested for this crime. One time, when a grown man kissed me when I was 12 years old, and when my mother learned of this through one of my friends, she immediately reported him to the police. That's one reason I know that my mom would have gotten the police involved. And Lord forbid if my dad found out. I sat down with the ethics officer and she told me that I was in a condition of treason for my involvement with Daryl and I was to write up my lower conditions. The condition formulas are a series of steps one follows designed to improve the aspects of one's life they are applied to, from the lowest to the highest. There are formulas for the condition of confusion, treason, enemy, doubt, liability, non-existence, danger, emergency, normal, affluence, power change, and power. That was it. The police were not informed. Daryl was not dismissed from staff, nor was he removed from his post as course supervisor. I mean, just so that you know, I found out from my stepdad that Daryl was promoted to the ethics officer of that organization after this incident. And the ethics officer is the person who's responsible for maintaining a high ethical level of the organization and seeing that people get their personal ethics in. So they put a total criminal in charge. And here's the other twist of the plot. Daryl went on to have other instances of child molestation. I think he even had sex with his 8-year-old niece. And when his brother found out about it, the dad, Daryl was hospitalized with a broken arm and was arrested as well. So, Scientology covered up for this guy who was a total criminal and should not have been anywhere in the organization and should have been turned over to the police long ago. I was transferred from Bellevue to the church located in downtown Seattle so we would work in separate locations. I didn't tell my parents, and neither did the church. If they had found out at the time, they would have had Daryl hauled away for statutory rape in a heartbeat. Instead, this incident was kept quiet. There was this sort of agreement amongst the Scientology staff to keep such internal situations to ourselves, thus concealing anything that could potentially reflect badly on the church if it were made known. An unspoken policy still firmly in place and very prevalent to this day. Um, it's not all that unspoken because there's a lot of Office of Special Affairs policies about this. In the ethics book, it's a high crime to go to the authorities about such instances. So anyway, that is the end of this chapter. Anyway, I'm happy that we were able to kickstart this so that I could read you the first chapter, and we'll continue to post up the individual chapters. If you have any questions, put them in the comment section, and I'll be sure to take a look at those. And if you'd like to order a copy of my book, go to Scobee Publishing. It's scobee-publishing.com, and you can order my book there, Abuse at the Top. And subscribe to my channel at Queen Bee SP. Okay. With Scientology, it's always worse than you think. That's what Matt likes to say. And it's true. It's very true. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time. Bye.